Koppel, host of the Time for Coffee podcast, where you get first-hand career advice into the jobs and industries that interest you the most. And before we start today's show, I have a quick favor to ask you. If you haven't already, I'd be incredibly grateful if you give us a rating and a review on iTunes. And if you're like me, you need to do it now because you'll forget later and because it's the best way to help others who may be in search of career advice to find this free resource. So press pause if you haven't done it and do it right now. I'll wait. Thanks so much and enjoy today's show. Hey there, Java Junkies. Welcome to another K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. By the way, K-Cups come in 3 sizes, single, double, and triple shots, or roughly 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes in length. So if you don't have time to throw back an entire caffeinated career conversation, these K-Cup mini episodes of T4C can give you a quick caffeinated fix, whether you're on the go or you only have a few minutes to binge. So grab your mug and take a chug, because it's time for a caffeinated career double shot K-Cup with my guest, Michael Roderick. So did you know what you were going to do with your degree when you graduated?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you go into something and you have an idea of what you think you want to do, and then as you probably hear from, I would imagine, lots of guests, you realize sort of during that journey that there are things that aren't what you thought they were. Right. So I went into my undergrad career basically expecting to be a famous actor. I was like, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be, I'm going to learn, I'm going to be on stage, all these different types of things. But over the course of the time that I was going through that major, I ended up working in the costume studio at the school. I ended up learning more about directing. I ended up learning more about playwriting. I ended up learning a lot about just all the different sort of varied parts of the industry. So I eventually reached a point by the time I got to what I like to refer to as the victory lap, because, you do that extra year to finish out all the credits, right? When I got to sort of that point, I had learned so much about the industry that I started to think, well, what if I created things? So by the time I was in that last year, I actually had written my own play, directed it, produced it, and sort of put all the pieces together, as well as created a showcase for up and coming directors from the, from the school. So I always I guess you could say I always sort of had that entrepreneurial sort of aspect to things. And this was all while I was doing my student teaching and practicum and, all the things to get my education degree.
Amazing. So what was your first job when you graduated and how did you get it?
Yeah. So my very first job was a teaching job. And interestingly enough, I actually was offered 2 jobs on the same day. So I did all of my undergrad. I basically applied to a bunch of teaching jobs in Rhode Island. And I had a friend who was the pastor at another school in New York. And it was an all-boys Catholic high school on the Lower East Side. And he calls me up and he basically says, I'm teaching at this school, LaSalle, and they need English teachers. Would you be interested in interviewing? And that's actually where the name of my company came from, because I went to a bunch of my friends and I said, this is a big deal going to New York and interviewing. And they said, here you're a big fish in a small pond. You go to New York, nobody's going to know you. Here in Rhode Island, everybody knows you. You can have pretty much anything you want. But if you go to New York, nobody's going to know you. And that's really where the name of the company came from, because when I got to the city, that's really what I did, was sort of create this small pond of people around me that really helped me sort of, move my career forward and make more happen. But to answer the question about the job, I went and I interviewed at LaSalle, and I came back and I got a call from my old high school. And they asked me if I would interview there. So I did an interview there. And I was directing one of the shows that I had written. It was over the summer. And I stopped for a break during the rehearsal. And basically 2 voicemails were back to back. The first was my old high school saying, we would love to make you the head of our English department and run the entire sort of drama program here. And the second was LaSalle, where it said, basically, we'd love to have you as an English teacher and we have a budget to have a drama club. And I had that moment where I was just like, you know what? I could stay in Rhode Island. I could sort of do the comfortable thing, or I could go to New York and I could see kind of where things go. And I went for New York, and I'm really glad I did.
Thanks for tuning in to this K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. If you want to listen to our entire caffeinated career conversation, please check out the show notes for this episode. Thanks so much for listening to this latest episode of T4C. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching services for confused college students and recent grads, feel free to check out the Time for Coffee website under the coaching tab at time4coffee.org or text me at 202-236-5712. That's 202-236-5712.